Hello everyone and welcome to this episode, the Women's Identity one of the Women Talking About Learning podcast. I'm Andrew Jacobs. This topic has been floating around for a while. Indeed, it was one of the early topics that was suggested for the podcast. We weren't entirely sure what might come up when it was discussed and were interested to find out the challenges that women face in defining themselves. Sometimes we do get an idea of what our guests might discuss, but this one, we had no idea. We're really lucky that we did have two great guests. Our first guest is Iveta Zaklasnikova. Iveta leads the Quantum Leadership, where they assist tech companies in enhancing employee retention, engagement, and diversity by delivering leadership and communication programs that are tailored for first-time managers and emerging leaders. Our second guest is Farah Wright-Codlin. Farah describes herself as a mother, daughter, sister, friend, and career woman. She's currently lead for employment and training in addition to environmental improvements within a local government community relations team in the UK. At the end of this episode, we do have some news that you might want to stay tuned for. Recorded in August of 2024, this is Women Talking About Learning. This is Iveta and Farah talking about women's identity.
Hey Farah, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. How's it going?
I'm good, thank you. A bit hot. I'm in the south of Turkey, so a little bit hot today, but apart from that, all good. What about you?
It's definitely cooled down a little bit over here because previously it was really hot, so difficult to sleep at night. But after the tossing and turning, it's kind of gone down a bit, so it's a lot more bearable. You can actually enjoy it today, so that's quite nice.
Wonderful.
That's quite
Wonderful.
nice. I was excited for us to be able to talk about the women's learning and the key points from it. I think it's definitely something that hasn't been covered as much in detail as it could have previously in so many different spaces. And so I was really glad this podcast was going to be speaking about this today and that we get to kind of touch upon it.
Yeah, me too. And especially we are in the middle of summer and heat, and we made the time to actually speak about women's identity. And I'm always excited about that topic. But before we kick off, do you want to perhaps just share a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, so I'm a community relations officer for a local authority. We do a lot with regards to our residents in like housing and things like that. And so the parts that I look after is environment, but then it's also employment skills and training, quite different. So I'm pretty busy a lot of the time. But yeah, so it's just sort of supporting residents to be able to access different things. So if there's a green space that they want to be able to turn and use for different kind of purposes and it's going to build the community, I would be there to support them in that. But then in addition, when it comes to jobs and training opportunities that are happening within our borough, I'm able to publicise that to our residents and try and make sure that, you know, we're getting our residents into work that's actually going to help them long term. I think especially coming out of the COVID situation and, you know, you had a lot of people that they were doing jobs that they didn't mind at that point, but that was because they never had a chance to sort of stop and think. And I think that the COVID situation, it definitely gave people a lot of time, if nothing else, to sit and think about, you know, if this is what they even want to do. And, you know, a lot of the time people were just operating on a autopilot basis. So having that time, it was definitely needed for people to think about. And we found that there's a lot of people that do want to change career paths and want to kind of get into new activities, or even just the fear, I think, the fear of starting something new when you're comfortable in what you're already doing can be quite a daunting thing. But I definitely think that that situation gave people reason to just think it's now or never, you know?
Mm-hmm. Completely
How
hear
about
you.
you?
Yeah, I just want to touch point on what you've mentioned. I completely hear you, and I see that as well in my work that and in my circles as well, that many people had a chance to finally pause and reflect, I would say, on okay, where I am and where I want to be and what am I going to do about it, if anything. But yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you for the intro. So, myself, my name is Iveta Zaklasnikova. I am a founder of the Quantum Leadership. We basically help tech companies boost their employee retention and engagement by training their first-time managers and emerging leaders into confident communicators and leaders. Yeah, I've been doing this work for over 7 years, and I would say 98% of my clients are and were women. So today's
Yeah.
topic is very spot on for me, and I'm super passionate about the topic of women's identity because when clients approach me, they usually want changes in terms of their confidence and how they show up at work and speaking skills. Or when it comes to companies, they want more engagement at work and people are hitting the KPIs and so on. But identity is something that I always work on with my clients in some shape or form because in my opinion that's crucial, not just for women, for anyone. It's
Yeah.
truly, truly crucial. What do you think about it? Like, what I'm curious about? Like, what comes up for you when you hear the word identity?
Identity for me is quite an interesting word within itself. I think that it's very easy, probably for men and women, just alike, in a sense of you almost like not wanting your identity to be what it is that you do, if that makes sense. Being a human being and not a human doing, like it's that sort of difference. So it's almost like when we think of like women's identity, to be like specific to, you were asking me, I think you're an individual who goes around and you're learning and you're developing and you are kind of just your own person. And at some point in that process, if someone said, "Who are you?" you could probably tell them a lot easier. But then for some people, if they've become parents or they've maybe gotten married, that then becomes the precedent of who are you? Well, I'm such and such's mom, or I'm such and such's wife, and I do X, Y, and Z. It's all about what you're doing for someone else. It's not about how you are as a human being and what you enjoy as a human being and things that you like and dislike and things you're good at and not good at. And so I think that when it then comes full circle, and you're talking about, women within work and their identity, they wear so many hats. We as women, we wear so many hats and we are so many things to so many people. You know, before you clock in to your shift to start work at 9, just say you've been a chef, you've been a chauffeur, you've been a hairdresser, you've been, you've done all of these things. And so I think that it's a very interesting one when we speak on women's identity, because at the core of all of that, who are you? What makes you you? You know? And then when you are thinking about maybe when you're a child and someone says to you, "Oh, so what kind of things do you like? Or what kind of things are you interested in?" And, as a child, you're like, "I like this, I do this, I like this, I like this." And then you get to being an adult and there's so many responsibilities and you're wearing so many hats that you do kind of it's very easy to get lost in it. It's very easy to get lost in it and to just get swept up in the routine of wake up, get ready, go to work, perform and do what I need to do, come home. And, you kind of get swept up in that sometimes, you lose sight of yourself. So that's why I was really interested in this, because I think the word identity is so broad and so vast and can mean so many different things to so many people.
So who are you? Who are you?
Exactly. It's more of, when someone says, so tell me about yourself, or who are you? It's a lot of the time we don't lead with who we are. We lead on what our responsibilities entail. And so it's the things that we do that we then use to kind of talk about who we are. But if we stop doing that stuff today, then who are we? I find that to be quite an interesting one. I really, really do. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I know I said a lot just then.
No, 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 no. I'm glad that you talk about it. And I honestly like identity, and specifically like shifting identity is something that I personally in my work, I'm super passionate about because I've seen this over and over. That I'll give you an example that's coming up for me. Like a couple of years ago, I worked with this lady, and we dive deeper into her values and what is it that it's important for her in terms of her career and life. And then
Yeah.
we started working on identity. I work with my clients. I take them through a model which is called logical levels. It was created in 1960s or 70s by Gregory Bateson. It was a psychologist, if I remember correctly. And this model literally is kind of like a mirror for people to see how we can create massive changes and what is it that's stopping us from creating those changes. And this client of mine that I've worked with, when I took her through the process, she was amazed because she realized, wow, I'm living all my life according to the expectations of my parents. She realized for the first time that her identity is based on expectations of her family rather
Yeah.
than who is really she. Because identity is always, for me, it's always about I am XYZ. That's the identity. How do I see myself? And very often, I think many women get lost in that. And I myself was lost in that as well. And I'm still finding out new things.
Oh, yeah, same.
Right,
It's a
right. Like
never-ending journey.
it's a
It's a
never-ending journey.
never-ending journey.
But for me, for example, for the past 2, 3 years, the biggest question for me was the children question.
Okay.
Because I realized I always sort of knew that I don't want to have children. But the last 2, 3 years where I'm 35 year young,
Okay.
and I realized, okay, like this is something that I really need to like sort out, right? And I realized that I really do not want to have children. But the pressure for us as women
Oh my God, the pressure is
is
ridiculous.
freaking insane.
Like, what is it? Why is it by force? Why is it by force? And that's one of the things that I personally, I've got children,
Mhm.
and I see so many times, and I've spoken to so many people who have been friends of mine or just people that I've been speaking to, and maybe they've not wanted children, and I've said, for someone who doesn't have children, at times, yeah, looking in, us as parents, we love our children dearly, but we don't always make it look fun. We don't always make it look like, this is the next thing to necessarily do, and like, it can be a thing where it's like, why is it by force? If a person chooses that they don't want to do that and they want to just live their life for themselves, why is there so much pressure, almost as if, yeah, but you're not doing this or you're not doing that? Why? And that's never made sense to me. Even I've got children, but it's never made sense, because I've also got cousins and nieces and nephews and friends, and it's like, if someone said, though, I don't want to be a dad, I don't feel like it's always met with the same rebuttals as it is with people who are women were saying, I don't I don't feel like that's my journey.
Yeah.
Just don't think that that's gonna be me, or where I'm looking to kind of go. So yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. Sorry, I'll let you carry on, but I definitely, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, no, I'm so passionate about this topic because I really took my time and dived deeper into this because I really wanted to make the best decision for myself. And I completely respect, women like yourself who've chosen to have children. It's completely fine. And I think that everyone should do whatever they feel is right for them and for others. But talking about women's identity, and being child free, this question, I actually was told this by my ex partner. He told me, like, you are not going to be really woman if you don't have children. What you going to do when you're going to be old? You're going to be alone. You will be
I've
left
heard
alone.
this.
Yeah, you would be surprised how many times I've heard this. Yeah.
I find it insane when people say, yeah, but, you know, oh, you don't want to have children. Oh, that's selfish. Or, oh, so what are you going to do when you get older? Surely having children so that you're not lonely when you're older is selfish. Like, they are going to have to live out the rest of their whole entire lives just because you didn't want to be. And then after doing all of that, you could be lonely anyway. They could go and live in a completely different part of the world and embark on their own journeys as they should. And then if there you are, you've had them just because you didn't want to be alive. Like, it's crazy.
You know what you just said about they will be living on the other side of the world. So this is exactly what I said to my ex when we had a fight about it. And he said, you will end up left alone because like nobody's going to take care of you. And I was like, you know what? your children, you're gonna be in a metaverse. You're never gonna see them either. Do you think that they will be living here with you? Do you really, do you
Yeah,
really think that
yeah, because
they will be maybe living on Mars or somewhere?
yeah, and Elon will make that possible soon.
Yeah, sooner or later it's gonna happen. But no, there's so much about this, but I must say it's a journey. It's still. I also I didn't say that at the beginning, and I should have, but it's the heat here in Turkey. I forget. But I'm a kind of an adventurous soul, and I lived in 14 different countries. Literally before coming here, I was sitting in a cafe, and I talked with my friend that I met through a podcast, and she's also child free, and she's also um, uh, expat. She's originally from Canada, and we talked over the WhatsApp, and we discussed the fact, like, okay, again, identity question, like, where do we really belong? Because we both know that we will not stay in Turkey for a long time, and the question is, okay, where do you actually belong? Because suddenly there's this question of, okay, I'm child free, I don't have the base, right? Because if you've got family, you've got kind of like you have some roots, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you're just trying to navigate through life, just hoping that you don't screw your kids up. Like every decision that you make,
I
you're
bet.
not sure, is this the right decision or the wrong decision? There's so much that even comes within the space of, having children within itself. There's so much that even as women who do have children, it doesn't necessarily always get spoken about. So that's why I'm also able to sit here and say, like, I could completely understand, like, for people who don't want to have children, men and women who just say, I don't think that's the life for me. I mean, the anxiety that starts, and obviously I can only speak for me, I can't speak for everyone, but the anxiety that begins within your whole entire system, even just seeing a line on a stick and saying that you're pregnant, you now just feel like you can't eat certain bits and pieces now. So whatever you were eating before, your diet is completely different. Now that you've got to change all of that stuff. If there were certain things that you like to enjoy or do, you're probably not going to be able to eat that. And I mean, like, that could even just be between like the certain types of mayonnaise you could eat. Like, it really does go as silly as that. Like, but your head just starts to think about this person who technically doesn't actually exist in actual physical form just yet, but you're constantly worrying, if that makes sense, especially once you start to show, and then all of a sudden you're trying to make sure that no one bumps your bump and that you've got enough space. Certain foods will make you feel sick. The smell of toothpaste makes you want to throw up, but you need to use it. It's like, there's so much, right? There's so much encapsulated that it's like on an individual basis, people just need to decide if that's what they want to do. And I think that because of the way that our society is, even coming to that place to be able to say for certain, like, no, this isn't for me, it takes a lot of like looking inward and soul searching and really like figuring out if this is what you want or if this really isn't what you want to actually do, because you're going to always get pushback from absolute strangers who don't even know you, but will have an opinion on how you live your life. And it's not fair and it's not okay, but it does definitely play into the identity thing, because whoever you are as a person before you have children, it doesn't matter if you have them younger in life, older in life, you're not going to be the same person. You're not the same person as who you are when you're halfway through the trimesters, and you're not the same person that you were once you have the baby. And then 5 years down the line when they start school, you've changed as a person again. Like, and you're forever navigating life through a lens of, I've never done this before. Every day is a new day. One day your child wasn't climbing out of their cot bed. All of a sudden they have. We just found them just standing there now. Or they're just sitting there. And you're like, what? I literally, like, I thought you were bound by these four, walls of the bed. And it's like, okay, so now we're doing this. It's just forever changing, and you're forever navigating a situation that you've never had before. Barring and bearing in mind that even the people that you give birth to, I've got two children, exact same setup. They are completely different. They are completely different, just by nature. My pregnancies were different. They are different by nature, by people. And so when you look at it from that, you're almost born with your own identity and makeup of how you find things. Certain things will make some babies laugh. The same thing might not make another baby laugh. You already have an identity, and as you go through life, it gets skewed and it gets swift, and it develops and it unpicks. It's very, yeah. It's a very interesting one, to say the least, and that's why I can completely understand your point.
I just feel overwhelmed just when you talk about it. I'm like, oh my God, no, 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 no. It's absolutely not for me. But you know what? You know what, Farah, I would love to ask you is, do you think that, because you are mom, I cannot speak about this,
Yeah.
right? But do you think that really women can have it all? They can be mom, really be there for their children, and at the same time have the career that they want?
I would say that the answer to that is probably no. The answer to that is probably no. And it's not in a sense of saying that, I mean, I've, I'm working, I'm a full-time mum, as well as I'm working as well. Like, but my children have now gotten to an age where they're actually in school now. Prior to that, I was working part-time. And so it's about what you prioritize. If you're trying to get it all, you will never have it all, because you can never give. If you've only got 100 marbles, you can't give 100 marbles to everything. You have to give some to this, some to that, and it really is working out what you prioritize. And the priorities can also change, and it can differ. And I have found for me that it has over the course of time. So when my children were young, when they were little, I had a toddler and a newborn baby, and I had no work experience at that point in time. I had started an apprenticeship, and I completed that apprenticeship when I had one of my children. And just before that apprenticeship ended, I was pregnant with my second. So obviously there you go, you have to take a little bit of time out. That apprenticeship was going to be coming to an end anyway. So I passed that, got that qualification. That was my level 2 for business admin. And then I had to take some time out. And I'm a person by nature. I've noticed this, I have to always be doing something. I have to. I can't, if I sit and I'm not doing something, I feel antsy. I feel like I'm just wasting time, or that, yeah, it's not great. So in the space of time when I wasn't working and I was pregnant and I had my 1-year-old, I joined Avon and I started selling Avon. And I would waddle with my bump to all the doors and put the stuff through the letters and things like that. But that was also just to make sure that I didn't feel like I was just not really doing anything to try and get money in for my child as well. It's difficult. I think as a mum, you will forever be damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I think that I've had to just make peace with that. For every person who thinks I should be at home more, there'll be another load of people that say, no, you're doing good, girl. Keep going, keep pushing. You're doing what you can. Because I'm also a single parent. So when you ask that question of can you have it all, I do really take a moment and think about that. And I don't think that you can. I think you can have it all, but you can only have it all according to your priorities. If you wanted to just have it all in general, no, I don't think that that's a possibility, because you can't. I mean, this is the thing that a lot of people always speak about, like working as if you don't have children, but then being a parent as if you don't have work. Rent is due regardless of your situation, your circumstance. And so, you want to make sure that you've got a roof over you and your children's heads, but you will feel mum guilt at points in time. I definitely have felt mum guilt. To this day, I still do sometimes. They're a lot bigger now. I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old now. So they're a lot bigger now. And yet, even though we're in the midst of the 6 weeks holidays, I've taken off 3 weeks. 3 of those weeks I'm going to be working, and I'm going to feel like rubbish, you know, and feeling like I should just be with them, but then also knowing that I have the responsibility, and me doing this responsibility is also for them. So when I was speaking before and I was saying about the priorities and things like that, I don't want to waffle, but I meant that in a sense of when it is forever changing. So when my children were really small, I was doing full-time work, hated it, felt super guilty, really bad. My son had just started primary school. I was taking him to breakfast club in the morning, not seeing the teachers, collecting him from after school club in the evening, not seeing the teachers. How was your day at school? I don't know. So I then had to speak to the school and say, can we get like a contact book where, you know, the teacher will write a little note in about like things that's happened throughout the day, and she'll put it in his bag, and when he comes home I can have a look at it, just so I could try and, you know, feel still involved. And it still was not enough for me at that point. So I realized that my priority had changed, and the money wasn't so much of the focal point, but actually the guilt that I was feeling for not being there as much as I wanted to was. So I changed jobs. I went part-time, and I was able to take him to school, collect from school and nursery, and do all of that. And I felt a lot better because money at that point just wasn't a priority. And I did that for quite a few years. I've had a few different roles in you know, local authority, but still working part-time, and within housing. And then my children got to the ages that they're kind of at now, where one's just started secondary school and the other one, he starts secondary school next year. And they're boys. They're growing quickly, super quick. My 12-year-old is a size 8 shoe. It's getting expensive. It's getting pricey here. So I'm now working full time, and I'm able to kind of balance that. So it's just forever changing, but the only way, I do believe the only way that as a person with children that you can have it all is to just go off of what you prioritize and what you find as a priority. You can't have it all, and the sooner you realize that you can't have it all, the better you'll be able to be. Because then
Yeah.
you'll just feel like, well, if nothing else, at least I am hitting the things that are important to me, you know?
And I think, thank you for sharing. And I think, Farah, that, you know, exactly what you've mentioned, like the priorities are changing, and also the identity is changing at the same time,
Yeah.
right? Like back to today's topic. And I think for me, what really, where I could see myself when I hear your story, is what you've mentioned about how is your identity changing as the children are growing, and it's always something new, right? No matter whether they are 3 months or 5 years or 10 years, right? Things are changing, right? And I can relate to that to some degree. And for some people, it might be, if you are mom and you are listening, you are like, oh, Yvette, you cannot compare this. But I can compare that to some degree with traveling and living, not traveling as holidays. I mean, living in different countries. I've been here in Turkey for almost 11 months. And honestly, I'm completely different person to who I was when I came here. Every single country changes me. Every single cultural shock tweaks my perception of life. You know, it's incredible. It's incredible. So for me, like I can relate to some degree. I can relate what you've mentioned about children growing up. Yet at the same time, I know that I wouldn't do good job. I know that, like, I just wouldn't, like, the way how you describe it. And especially single parents, like, I don't know how you guys do that, and I don't know how you sleep. I have no freaking idea. But kudos to you, seriously, kudos to you. And yeah, and thank you for being honest and talking about the fact that you believe that you cannot have it all, because I feel that there is so much lie. There is so much light when it comes to motherhood, especially on Instagram. Everything looks pretty and shining, and it's amazing. But I honestly, and I know that I will piss off a lot of people right now, but I would like you to be honest and tell me the truth. I do believe that there are many women who regret being mothers because they just had a different expectations. Because society projects that as something we've got to do it, and it's going to be amazing, and your life is going to change for better, and you can have it all, and it's a pure lie. That's my opinion. And I think that we need to talk about this, because there are many women, families, and children who are struggling due to this lie. But share your opinion, please. I know that we've got still a little bit time,
I
but
think that the world in itself is so big that I wouldn't say that there aren't women who don't regret it. I think that we see a lot of women in mental situations for mental health. I
yes,
think that there's a lot about motherhood that doesn't get covered. I think that between motherhood, working, like I said in the beginning, we wear so many different hats. And that's even regardless of being a parent. Like, we wear so many hats. And we are so many things to so many people, whether that be daughter and what that encapsulates, because for each family that will be different. We wear many different hats. I do believe that there are probably women who do have regrets because they did believe the hype and the dream and the people that said to them, oh, well, you're not going to be happy. But then I also think that there are women who are extremely happy being mothers,
of
but
course.
they still can't avoid when it's just not a good day. Like, there's some days you wake up, your children have their own moods, they have their own ups and their downs. And if you've got children who are pre-teens, they're up and down like a yo-yo. And you're trying to juggle this, or the children have just been arguing all day, and yet you woke up from the morning with a splitting headache, and you've still got to make sure that food is done and that this is sorted. We're human. Even if you're a mother, you're a human. And so it's a blessing. It's a blessing. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its own set of challenges. Especially, I mean, you've got women who are even married and they are somewhat single mothers, in the sense of
Of course,
doing it
so
all by
many.
just doing it all by themselves, as well as working maybe full time as well, and they're married and they've got the children. And different people have different situations and relationships with family members even as well. And you also, the ups and downs of pregnancy, and you remember how people treated you within your pregnancy. If people were nice, if people weren't nice, if you remember all of that kind of stuff, because you're not pregnant all the time, so you're going to remember these are key points within your life. I do believe that there are probably women out there who do struggle with it, and as a result of struggling with that, and as a result of not being the dream that they maybe were sold, do maybe have regrets. But then in addition, even if they're just not happy on a certain day, or they're just in a place where they're struggling and postpartum depression, and there's so many different things, and then having an immense amount of guilt for even feeling that, if that makes sense. And
It's
yet
a
you
catch
can't help
22,
it.
right?
Yeah, it's like, you
Yeah.
can't help it. It's like beating yourself up because you just feel sad, or you just feel bad, or you're having a depression, for example. Like, that's always been something that I've always wondered for my friends as well, who haven't had children, maybe even just how they navigate through the stormy weathers of when it's like you're feeling down and you're depressed and you just want to be, how they kind of are able to get through that. Because for me, that my only thing that's kind of been that has kind of been my children. If my children didn't need me to get up and make them food, I might lay in with the duvet over my head all day on certain times. It's kind of a forceful thing of, it's like, whether you want to or not, you need to show up. And so that's why the identity thing is really important, because it's like sometimes we deny our own identity too, to show up for other people. We deny our own identity to show up for family, relatives, mom, dad, family, like siblings, grandparents, children, your partner, even trying to be the person that they want you to be, but then also trying to do what you're trying to do with this. And then especially even, children aside, relationships aside, if you're a person who by nature you're very much a get up and go type individual, but the person that you love and that you're with just feels like, just relax, like it's fine, you don't need to do any of that, then it's that constant combative thing that's happening, or they want you to slow down, but you've got bigger visions for what you want to do with yourself, and maybe they're content with just what you guys already have. They're like, we're fine, we've got a setup, we're cool. But you might be a person, who's like, I want to travel the world, I want to make sure that I see things, I want to experience things. Then that can also be something that also plays in it's almost like a tug of identity of who's going to win, if that makes sense. My identity says that by nature, I'm a get up and go individual. I want to experience life. I want to see different things and try different things. But the person that I'm with, that I love and I want to be with them, but it's almost like a clash of like, this is holding me back. And if I deny my identity and not go for that, to then feed into what you kind of want for me and us, and it's a massive thing. It really is. It really is. And that's why it can change so much, because you've got people who have been in family situations and their family's like, you're a different person, I don't know you anymore, who is this? So it's very interesting. But no, to answer your point, I do think that there are probably people who do have regrets, to be quite honest. I definitely do. But it's one of those things, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, and I would just say for listeners, in fact there are people. There's a book written by, I believe that she's Israeli writer, called Regretting Motherhood. It's an anonymous book. It's a set of interviews, um, and I recommend every woman who is on the fence just to read it, just to have the understanding of what really can happen. Because one thing is, I feel like I'm sounding really negative, but I just want for everyone to make the best decision for themselves. And
I think it's
I want to
actually rather
pin
balanced. You've got someone with children and someone who doesn't.
yes,
I think it's
yeah,
rather balanced, and I will look at it from a balanced point of view as well, which is why, even in the questions that you're asking me, I'm able to say like, I don't think this, or I don't think, and it's just an opinion.
yeah. And I just want to pinpoint something that you said, which was really powerful. I've heard you say you have women who are married, who are single parents, or kind of like a single, and this is so true. This is so true. And again, I feel like there is this dream that we are sold that, oh, it's 50-50 and you've got to support. That's not true. The guy can always walk away. You
So
know,
that's why I do believe.
Obviously, mother can walk away as well, but not really. You know
Yeah,
what I
but I,
mean?
I do believe that's why I do believe that for women in particular, when making a decision as to whether or not you want to have children, you have to make that decision with you in mind. You
Yes.
can't make that decision to appease your partner, because if your relationship breaks down and this wasn't something that you necessarily wanted, this is you now.
Yeah,
Even if you get a divorce,
that's it.
this is you now.
That's it. And you know what? Last thing I want to mention, because I'm conscious of time on this very topic, is the fact that I do believe, strongly believe, that a lot of women need to create a space in their life to be on their own and really understand who they really truly are and what is it they want. Like 3 years ago, if you told me that I will be living in the south of Turkey and I will be riding a motorcycle, I would think you are really high. I would think you are freaking crazy. And here you are. I moved to Turkey to ride a motorcycle, right? And I would never learn that, and I would never even think about it if I wasn't in that period of my life when I was single and I was like, wow, what's next? What am I going to do? Do I want to have children? Do I don't want to? Do I want to travel? Do I go back to Czech? What am I going to do? And I'm still finding who I am. And I will be honest as well about this topic, that I'm not fully owning what we are sharing here, because a lot of clients that I'm working with are, tech corporates, and I'm still a little bit slightly worried about how people perceive me, because I'm child free by choice. I'm vegan. I'm very strong vegan. Although I don't talk about it much, but I'm vegan. I've got ADHD. I have learned at the age of
So
35 that
do I.
after
So do
high
I. Yeah.
five, high
High five.
five.
High five. Remember I said to you, I have to always be doing something. Like,
There you go. I
yeah.
understand you. I'm exactly the same. And guess what? I don't know when did you learn about it, but I learned about it this year. And I've learned because I am freaking on my own, single, and there was and actually thanks to learning how to ride a motorcycle, I learned that on my in my lessons. Actually,
Okay.
there's something going on, and at the age of 35, and still I'm not talking publicly about it that much because there's still a little bit, but it is my identity. That's the point that I want to share, that this is who I am. Yes, I'm entrepreneur, yes, I'm trainer, coach, and so on, but I'm child free by choice. I'm vegan and I'm ADHD person. But tell me about your
And
ADHD.
so like, oh gosh, yeah. For me, it was I've recognized that more recently as well. And for me, it was realizing also that like that is so like previously you might just think to yourself like, oh, like, yeah, I've always got like thinking and things in my head, or I've got like lists of things. I've got loads of lists of things that I need to get done, and then I write the list because that's as productive as I can almost get with it. And then when it comes to like crossing stuff off of the list, it gets a little bit. I have to do it in a specific type of way for me to actually find it engaging. So I'll have to like, if I've got things to do in my house, for me to actually want to get up, I have to almost challenge myself and set a timer and be like, all right, cool. How much stuff can I get done? I have to make it engaging for myself. Otherwise, it's just not really going to happen like how I want it to. But I was thinking just really quickly before I continue, there was something that you said with regards to yours. You said you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman, you've got all of these different things, and yet with all of that being said, it would make sense. The ADHD would make sense. You do so much stuff. You've just, like we're like hummingbirds. People with ADHD, sometimes we can be like hummingbirds, where
Yeah.
we're just, we're here, then we're there, then we're doing this, then we're doing that. We get all these amazing ideas. And so we just want to start working on them almost simultaneously. And then at the end of it, we're like, okay, whichever one I like the look of the most at a certain point will be the one that I go with. It's quite an interesting one. But I think for me, I think that my ADHD has definitely helped me in a sense of my creativity, being able to sometimes see different things, or just want to do, because I want to get things done kind of quickly and stuff like that. I can often spot cogs in a wheel that it's like, this doesn't work as well. If we did it this way, we could get this done faster and it would still be productive and it would still flow, and so it's definitely helps, and it's a help and a hindrance. It just depends on what it is at the time. It just depends.
Yeah, I mean it can be gift if we look at it as a gift and if we do something about it. That's what I've learned so far. That I really like since I learned that I've got ADHD, I've been really learning about, okay, how can I make my brain, as you said, engaged? Now how can I make things work for myself in a fun way
Yeah.
and still productive, but so that I enjoyed it, because otherwise with ADHD it's yeah,
Yeah, oh,
like,
honestly,
it's a whole different
especially
topic.
that
We would have to we
focus,
would
when
have
you
to
get like into like
we would have to we would have
a proper zone of focus, hyper focus, and it's like you're
hyper
just
focus.
praying no
Yeah.
one breaks it, because to get back to that place is so difficult. It's so challenging. But you actually mentioned
Yeah, it
something
can
also
be.
that was quite interesting. I was just thinking, with regards to like the work that you do and helping with people when they're confident, that was something that I know that you mentioned that you help. Like, are there like any key things that you, or like pointers or tips that you could say to someone really quickly who might be listening that does struggle with that maybe they could, like, here's a point of like where to start? Because I think sometimes that's the other thing. I think for people with their identity, and not just identity but learning, and with all of these different things that they might want to do, it's like you can have big dreams or big ideas and big ambitions, but that first step is often the hardest, because it's like, where to start? So I was just thinking with what you do, like what do you usually speak to your clients about or advise them, or like where do you begin?
Yeah, I mean, it's
I
such a big,
know.
big, wide question, and I'm conscious about the timing. But I think it always, whether I work with women who, for example, struggle with confidence, or if I work with team lead who is, struggling with engagement of his or her team, I think that the key thing is always to reflect on where we are right now. And when it comes to the question of confidence, for example, for women, it's okay. Confident to do what? Where are you struggling? What is it that you need help with? Let's start there. You know, and there is always. Okay, I will share one more story. Andrew might hate it because we are gonna be over time, but this is so related to women's identity. And this is, yeah, I don't know. This is such a good story. This is a years ago. I worked with this client, and she came to me because I mean, years, I've been doing this work for over 7 years, but it makes me sound like I'm years. No, it's not that long. But this woman, she came to me and she said, she had a pretty good job, and she was very, very close to get promotion. But what she has observed is that each time she's very close to get her promotion, she literally effed it up. She sabotaged it, right? Yeah. And many women can relate to it, but listen to this. And she came to me and she said, Yvette, look, like, I'm really close to promotion, but each time I'm about having that conversation and really put things in place, I literally start doing weird things. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? And she goes, well, my boss asked me to deliver presentation for this big client, and I come late for the meeting, or I start to literally cause arguments with my teammates. And I'm like, I don't know what to do about it. I was, oh, this is really interesting. So let's look into that. And this is the reflection piece, the awareness that I just talked about. And I coached her, and I it's like peeling an onion. You are asking questions, I'm asking questions, and people start opening up. That's the self reflection part. And you know what we discovered? We actually discovered that for her specifically, why she couldn't, why she started, this self sabotage each time she was almost very, very close to get promoted, was the fact that she was afraid. In her words, these are her words, that it's going to change the dynamic with her partner if she starts making more money than him. And I and there you go. And this is the women's identity, and because so many women subconsciously, that's the key word, right? They or we are making things, we don't even know why we are doing that, but it's simply because we are conditioned and we are afraid that we might overshine our partners. Or if I do XYZ, some people might dislike it. So back to your question, awareness. I think self-reflection, awareness, really understanding what's happening for me here and now. I think that that's really
Was she
key.
able to, like, once she was able to pinpoint where it was coming from and why she was doing it, was she able to weigh up what she found to be of more importance to her? And I don't mean that in a sense of like her partner, or, I just more mean that in a sense of like, if she thinks that it would be worth, like, what one she kind of holds in higher regard, potentially getting a promotion and doing this, or if she's happy where she's at, if it means that she can continue to be happy with her partner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, not just with this client, but I've seen this over and over with many women. And usually, when we get to that point when they have this light bulb moments, as I like to call it, when they have this realization, like, whoa, okay, this is what's going on. This is the story I'm playing in my head, and this is really what I'm afraid of. Once we are able to pinpoint it and name it, very often it's very easier to work with it. So for this client, when she realized that, like, okay, this is what's going on, she had to start. She had to have conversation with her partner about it and be honest about, like, look, this is what's coming up for me, and really, because she had to kind of persuade her own mind that it's okay. I can make more money, and we are still gonna be okay
And we're
as a
still going to
couple.
be fine. Yeah.
Yes, but these are the things that are just playing in our head, and often, this is these things come up when it comes to when we start recognizing that we are sabotaging our life or career, our journeys, and often it's tailored, or it's connected to our identity. Farah, I'm conscious of time.
Conversing with you and talking about this is a brilliant topic.
Love it as well. Thank you so much.
No
Really
problem. Thank
glad
you.
we connected, and thank you so much for the mom perspective. It's nice to have conversation with
Yeah,
someone
no,
who's so
I've
open.
thoroughly enjoyed it. I knew that this topic was definitely a juicy one.
Yes, that's the right word.
As we said at the start, we weren't sure where this would go and were really surprised by just how personal it was. A huge thank you to both Iveta and Farah for their time and for sharing some deeply personal stories. We really hope this episode helped you gain a better understanding of how our experiences shape our identity and vice versa. Iveta and Farah's contact details are in the show notes, along with links to our website, future episodes and to our donation page. Can you believe we are approaching our 100th episode of the podcast? We had no idea that was going to happen when we started this, and we'd love you to tell us what you think about it. What have been your favourite episodes, and what has stood out to you? Which comments, guests and conversations have had the biggest impact? We would love to know. You can tell us, just in a short audio or video, and you can send that to us at hello@larn.com. If you don't want to send an audio, just some written comments will be just as useful. We're back soon, and next time it's the intergenerational one. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.